Before we get into this, let's take a minute to realize where we are. The TV show Cops was canceled because one member of the profession featured on the show was charged with murder. Aunt Jemima was canceled for being a racist African-American product, despite the fact that it was more popular among African Americans than any other race. The Washington Redskins name was canceled as well, despite between 70 and 90% of Native Americans not finding the name offensive. The Dixie Chicks name was canceled, despite no one in America knowing they were still a band. Needless to say, we kind of live in sensitive times. I'm not sure if you've noticed that. So then why does a man who has expressed outward admiration of a famous KKK leader continue to be allowed to represent one of the two major parties in the United States as its presidential nominee? I'm talking, of course, about Joe Biden, the man chosen to eulogize Robert C. Byrd, former KKK leader. You can only assume that the C stood for Caucasian. Robert Byrd wasn't just a KKK leader, but he was a KKK recruiter. Think about that for a second. He convinced other people to join the KKK. He went to people that didn't think it was a good idea to join the KKK before and convinced them that it was a good time to join now. This is the man that Joe Biden eulogized. How would you summarize a life like that?
The remarkable thing about him is he traveled a hard path. He devoted his life, though, to making that path a little easier for those who followed. This is a guy who continued to taste and smell and feel the suffering of the people of his state.
Oh.
He tasted it.
Tasted it.
That's why it was so deeply ingrained in him.
Robert Byrd sure seemed like he enjoyed the taste of certain people's suffering. Of course, Byrd wasn't always in the KKK. He eventually left as it became a tad unfashionable. But he didn't let that stop him. He continued to fight for his white supremacist ideas. 2 years after leaving the KKK, he wrote in a letter, quote, "Rather I should die 1,000 times and see Old Glory trampled in the dirt, never to rise again, than to see this beloved land of ours become degraded by race mongrels," end quote. Just because he left the Klan, he wouldn't give up. The fact that he always fought for his principles was something that Joe Biden truly admired, as he noted while specifically referring to Byrd's early years.
Having to work at an early age, he had an incredible determination.
Yes, he sure was determined, I'll say that. In fact, he set records for his determination. He led an 83-day filibuster against the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and even ranted for a record-breaking 14 hours against civil rights. Among his ranting was supposed scientific evidence about how black people's brains were smaller, proving they were inferior. He had strong principles, and he fought hard for them. That might be what Joe Biden admired most.
But ladies and gentlemen, of course, it's more than the name we're not going to forget. It's his courage.
Oh, courage.
He died like he lived. He died like he lived his life. He never stopped fighting. How many people would have hung on as long as he did? How many people would have had the ability to get back out of that hospital bed and get in a wheelchair and come in and vote for this? He never stopped thinking about his people.
Thinking of his people. Interesting thing to praise there, Joe. Some people would look back at this record and say it was, racist. Some would say prejudiced. Some would, I would guess, use the term incredible esteem.
If you didn't already know it, it's pretty clear the incredible esteem your father was held in. I know you've known that your whole life.
Oh, I'm sure you have. Look, a record like that does not deserve incredible esteem. But then again, I'm not a member of the party of the KKK, and I've never been invited to wax poetic about a KKK recruiter. Perhaps I don't understand the culture. Eventually, Robert Byrd would mention that perhaps the KKK wasn't such a good idea. And to be fair, it only took him over a half century to deliver these deeply principled words of guidance to younger politicians about the KKK. Quote, "Don't get that albatross around your neck. Once you've made that mistake, you inhibit your operations in the political arena." As you can see, he definitely didn't abandon the public face of racism for political expediency. Of course not. He really meant that, everybody. But it was guidance and mentoring like this that brought Biden and Byrd together as friends.
He was a friend, and he was a mentor, and he was a guide.
Oh, isn't that nice? I sure hope Uncle Joe learned a lot from Senator Byrd. Now, not everyone saw that, hey guys, avoid the KKK or it could hurt your career, as strong enough of a denouncement. That's why in 2001, like this century, Robert Byrd went on TV to tell his real truth about racism, as only Robert Byrd could, with multiple uses of the N-word.
Race relations.
They're much, much better than they've ever been in my lifetime. I think this is my personal opinion, I think we talk about race too much.
Yeah.
I think those problems are largely behind us.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I think we can all profit by our mistakes. I think we've reached a new plateau.
New plateau.
And I think it's going to keep going upward.
That's not a plateau.
That understanding and race relations. But I think I just think we talk so much about it that may help, I think, create somewhat of an illusion.
Illusion, okay.
I think we try to have goodwill. My old mom told me, Robert, you can't go to heaven if you hate anybody.
Oh, that's going well.
We practice that.
That's good.
There are white niggers. I've seen a lot of white niggers in my time. I'm going to use that word.
Oh, wow. We didn't say we wanted to use that word, Rob. That one really kind of rolled off the tongue, didn't it? It's almost like he's been saying that word a dozen times an hour for 70 years. And guess what? He was. Even if you take the N-word out of that rant, he'd still get canceled for that today. The illusion of racism? How dare you? Think of the dedication to white supremacy one must have to produce massively offensive quotes on the same topic 3/4 of a century apart. You know what I call that? Courage.
He was fiercely devoted, as you've all heard, to his principles. Even once he became power, he always spoke truth to power, standing up for the people he proudly was part of.
I'll say this for Joe Biden. That's true. Robert Byrd never stopped thinking about his people. But to most human beings, that is a literal description of everything that was wrong with Robert Byrd. To Joe Biden, it's glowing praise. Now, you could say that Biden is just saying some nice words at a guy's funeral, and you shouldn't read that much into it. And honestly, I have sympathy for that view, as you know. I mean, if you watch the show, you know I think cancel culture is always dumb. I am not rooting for this stuff. But I'm old enough to remember when Trent Lott spoke at Strom Thurmond's 100th birthday party and honored his career. You know what happened to him in a much less sensitive era? He lost his job and his political career was destroyed. Now, in the era of pancake spokespeople getting canceled, Joe Biden is going to get a free pass for eulogizing a freaking KKK member? Are you serious? We probably will never know what Joe Biden and Robert Byrd talked about in private. We know that they served together in the Senate for multiple decades. Some of that time, Byrd was an overt racist. Other times, he was just a racist in private. But one thing is for sure, if Robert Byrd were around for his own funeral, he would have been proud that he was honored by Joe Biden, a man who constantly is saying things like this.
When he was over there in Iraq for a year, people would come to him and talk about what was happening to them at home in terms of foreclosures, in terms of bad loans that were these Shylocks who took advantage of these women and men while overseas. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Oh.
In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Hi, Stu Bergier of Stu Does America here. Thanks so much for watching our video. Did you know you could watch our entire catalog for free right here on our channel? Subscribe now and be sure to hit the thumbs up button on all the episodes you watch, because that's how they know you like this stupid show. And that little bell in the corner as well. Make sure you click that. You'll get notifications every time we post new content. Stu Does America every weekday at 8 p.m. Eastern right here.